And she said, well, they are hunting us. They're pursuing us in the streets and they're dropping these explosives.
Today we are talking about one of the most out of many sadistic traits of the Russian war on Ukrainians. It has been dubbed the human safari. And yes, it means just what it says. Russian soldiers, armed with drones and cameras, simply go hunting for Ukrainian civilians in order to kill or maim them. Putin's goal here is to make Ukraine impossible to live in. Hello, my name is Michael Anderson and you are listening to the podcast of Two Grumpy Old Men on Ukraine. The woman you just heard is the American writer and journalist Zarina Zabrisky, who was the first who brought Russia's human safari to the world's attention. And now Zarina, who herself lives in Kherson, where these murders take place on a daily basis, has made a documentary about it.
In the evening, I went to a drugstore. I had a headache and I wanted to get some aspirin. And on the way there was an artillery attack. On the way back, I had to hide from a drone because it was buzzing over my head, which happens all the time.
Recently, the UN accused Russia's human safari of constituting war crimes. Those are words that the UN doesn't bandy about easily. Here on Two Grumpy Old Men on Ukraine, we have previously written about this in detail. Have a look at our Substack. Zarina Zabrisky has not only made a film about the human safari, but she's also been the prime mover in arranging a long series of demonstrations worldwide against these Russian war crimes. Those demonstrations take place all over the world this weekend and in the coming week. Check out for an event near you. Just punch into your Google machine human safari and Kherson. Kherson in southwest Ukraine, with its 300,000 inhabitants, was occupied early in the Russian invasion in February 2022. But in November 2022, after having been occupied for 9 months, Kherson was liberated by the Ukrainian army. But sadly, this was very far from the end of Russia inflicting pain on the people of Kherson. But I will let Zarina Zabrisky take over the story from here. We are in November 2022 and the Russian occupiers have just been kicked out of Kherson.
At that point, the Russian troops retreated across the river Dnipro, and they are currently located about 1 mile away from me, because the river in this area is a little bit less than a mile. And from there, they have been pummeling Kherson for 3 years, non-stop, incessantly, day and night, with all the weapons available to them. Because the distance is so short, they are able to reach us here in Kherson with pretty much anything from artillery and tanks and MLRS to small short-range drones. And that has been on the rise for the last about more than a year, since July 2024. And it has been labeled human safari. That's the way the locals are calling it. And I have translated that in English. And since I have been working here for the last 3 years, and I have been residing in Kherson for the last 2 years, I've been following it up and trying to, and somewhat succeeding at this point, to break the story of human safari, although that's definitely not the only type of weapons that are threatening Chersonians on a daily basis.
You actually live in Kherson now, but as far as I understand, you are American, but you were actually born in the Soviet Union or in Russia, right?
That is correct. I was born in the Soviet Union. I lived in the United States, and I have been an American for most of my conscious life. And my specialty was the Russian propaganda, the Kremlin narratives. And when the full-scale invasion started, it was only natural for me, or made sense for me, to come here, and I became a war correspondent.
So, Sarina, let's back up here. So, you are in America and you hear the war started in Ukraine. And as a journalist, you say, like many of us, this is a story I have an interest in this, I need to go over there, I need to cover that. Okay, so far I'm with you. But I think where the chain jumps up for a lot of people is that then you say, okay, let's go to basically the most dangerous place in the whole country and I will decide to live there. How does that work?
Well, when you put it this way, I actually never connected two dots. But as you asked me, I remembered my grandmother's saying, and my ancestors were 90% from Ukraine, and some were Jewish Ukrainians and some were Ukrainian Ukrainians. And my Jewish grandma used to say, if you eat pork, you eat it greasy.
So full out or not at all?
Well, actually, this is, of course, a joke, and it kind of like in the vein of Hersonian humor. They have this black humor that I don't know if it's always existed here, but they certainly developed it during the last 3 years while I was here. There's a lot of dark noir jokes that help people to survive. But my choice was more pragmatic. We are not here for the entertainment or love as journalists. We're here to cover the war. And if you look at the map in terms of journalistic coverage or representation, you'll see that most journalists are in Kiev. And while there are attacks on Kiev right now, and there's certainly things to cover there, there's no need for me to be there. And I do love the south of Ukraine. As a child, I spent a lot of time in Odessa,
All right.
and my grandfather was from Odessa. So I guess that was a part of the decision.
This story that has now been turned into your big documentary, The Human Safari. You say it started with the drone attacks in July 2024, so about a year and a half ago. I mean, when did this story sort of hit you, or did it literally hit you by you already in Kherson and it was happening around you, or how did you get interested in this?
I mean, I couldn't avoid the story. It was one of those things, Michael, where you don't expect it as a journalist because, journalists tend to hunt stories. And while I'm a writer, I have a novel and short stories, so I'm not a journalist. I'm a philologist by education, and I just became a journalist. So I happened to be in Kherson in July 2024 after a few weeks in Odessa, where I was doing some other project. And I think 2 or 3 weeks I wasn't in Kherson, and I came back. And I heard a new sound. And in Kherson, you hear a lot of sounds all the time. They're all kind of explosions. But that was really critically, dramatically different sound like I've never heard before. And I remember it very well. It sounded to me as a bunch of wet boards falling over a truck, as truck moving. And like there's this splashing sound to it. It's very unpleasant. It's very loud, and it feels like everything is falling apart. It's a very chaotic, disturbing sound, very characteristic. And I asked my friend, I was at my friend's house at the time, like, what the hell is that? And she said, well, don't you know it's a skid? And skid in Ukrainian means a drop, literally a drop. And I was like, no, I don't know. I mean, you tell me as if it's like, it's raining or it's, hail. And I don't know what it is. And she said, well, it's a drone dropping the explosives. And my first reaction, just like as any person with more or less normal psyche, was that's not possible. I mean, and she said, well, they are hunting us. They're pursuing us in the streets and they're dropping this explosives. Like, well, you must be losing it.
Mm.
You've been here, in this terrible condition for such a long time. You must be losing it. And of course, like in a few minutes, I realized that she's telling the truth, that it's indeed a thing. And then it started like one a day, two a day for about a week or two. And then come August 2024, and it's like rains explosives. And at this point, I find myself as the only foreign journalist in Kherson, trying to knock on all doors. And then the next 3 months, it took me to bang on every door, which I continue to do, by the way, to get the story out, get the story into the world. And the main difficulty there was, Michael, that the editors, being, people with a normal, healthy psyche, wouldn't believe me. They say, just like I didn't believe my friend, they said, well, you must be confused, that is not possible. And because in the beginning it was very difficult to obtain the evidence, the editors of big newspapers would say, well, bring us some good quality video or a photograph
Right.
of a drone attacking you. It's like, well, excuse me, but that would be my last photograph, that wouldn't be happening. But eventually, as the attacks and the number of attacks increased, it became possible to take such a picture. And in fact, by October, it wasn't difficult at all to take such a video. You just point your camera at the sky and there would be a drone flying through a screen. And so at this point, I accumulated enough interviews with the survivors or victims, people who were injured, or the relatives of those who were killed by the drones. And that was a critical mass. And at this point, newspapers, eventually believed me. So at this point, we have three reports by the United Nations and one by the Human Rights Watch, concluding that these are war crimes and crimes against humanity.
Listen, for the people who obviously haven't been in Kherson and haven't been sort of attacked by drones and other weapons, can you explain? I mean, what exactly you're saying that the Russians are on the other side of the river and it's just a mile away from where you are now. What is the mechanics, if I can call it that? What's the mechanics of these attacks? So the Russians are basically hunting. I mean, when you say it's a human safari, you literally mean that they are deciding, let's go hunt Michael or Zarina on the market in Kherson.
Yes, let me explain it. It's a very good question. So what happens? We're talking about small, short-range drones, and that's critical to understand because there are different type of drones. We are talking about the drones that you can buy if you're in America at Walmart or at Target. They used to be called the wedding drones because
Mm.
that's the type you use for the wedding videography or taking videos of the sports events. They are small, they are cheap, they are very flimsy, but they have a camera and you can attach a load to it. And this load could be an explosive. And they could be different types of loads. They could be the Molotov cocktail type grenade, like basically a bottle, a Coca-Cola bottle sometimes, or water bottle with incendiary mixture, which will set a house or several houses on fire.
Mhm.
It could be a grenade, which will explode. It could be a cluster munition load, which could be like, I don't know, again, a Coca Cola can, which is stuffed with a small metallic objects. And those objects are flying around on impact and injure and damage a lot all around them. There are also another type of drone called kamikaze drones, and such type, they're very, very cheap, but they also have a camera and they explode on impact. They basically like a bird of prey. It goes down and explodes and it kills. Most important thing here is that they are guided by a pilot. So on the other side of the river, there is a Russian pilot who sits there in his goggles or with a screen, and they can see very well their targets. So they can see if it's a woman, if it's a man, if it's a child, if it's a goat. That has been happening to, or dogs, cars, ambulances, firefighters. They know very well what they are doing. And that's, by the way, is reflected in the reports by the United Nations and Human Rights Watch, which are independent reports. And that's why it's called a safari, because that one person on the other side of the river sees you and hunts you. For instance, yesterday I was working all day, and then in the evening I went to a drugstore. I had a headache and I wanted to get some aspirin. And on the way there was an artillery attack. On the way back, I had to hide from a drone because it was buzzing over my head, which happens all the time. That's what the human safari is like.
So just to make that absolutely carved in stone, when one of the things we always hear in wars from all sorts of sides is that, oh yes, we hit the hospital, but it was a mistake. We didn't really mean to do this. In this case, what you are saying is that there's a guy sitting on the Russian side of the river, and there is no mistakes here. This is somebody who wants to hit that woman or that man or that car.
And not just that, Michael, it's actually worse because one popular platform, social media in Ukraine, as well as in Russia or Eastern Europe, is Telegram. And those Telegram channels, which are not as popular in the West, but people have heard about it. And those channels run by Russians close to the military circles. And they admit openly that they are indeed close to the military circles or are military. There are several of these channels, and they are posting daily the videos of these hunts, and they admit that that's what they do. They write that, no civilians will be excluded, move away from this area. They constantly publish and post threats and advising the residents to move away. They threaten the public transport. They consistently attack public buses. We have trolley buses here, as well as first responders who arrive to the site to help the victims. And then they do double tap, which Russians have been known for. No matter what kind of weapon they use, they do it with artillery. They did it in Chechnya, they do it in Syria, and they do it in Ukraine.
So this has been going on with particularly the drone attacks has been going on for a year and a half now. The human safari. How many people? Is there any numbers for how many people have been killed? How many people have been hurt in the Kherson region from these attacks?
Yes, about 200 were killed and over 2,000, close to 3,000 were injured. That includes children. And as for the number of drones, there are about anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 drones a week attack in Kherson. And at this point, there are special units, military units, and these units are stopping the drones. They are hunting the drones. They're hunting the hunting drones, shooting them. So often when I'm working on an article at home, I hear the shots outside, and this military and sometimes civilians shooting down the drones.
So when you say that, I mean, as far as I understand, there's about 60,000 people left out of a pre-war population of about 300,000 people in Kherson. I mean, if you have 60,000 people left and you say that there's so many attacks, there's thousands of attacks every week, and there's 3,000 people been hurt. I mean, a bit of quick math tells me that you have sort of like a 1 in 20 chance of being hurt by a drone if you stay in Kherson. I mean, that's amazing. Anybody still stays there.
Well, math is not my forte. I just can tell you that every time you leave the house, you know that you could be killed either by artillery or by a drone. In fact, you don't even have to leave a house to be killed, because say my building, the one I'm talking to from, was hit by different types of weapons 3 times last week, and I don't have any windows left, like pretty much anybody here in Kherson. We have plywood instead of windows. The apartment across the street from me was completely demolished just last week, and it happens all the time. Like, this is what is hard to understand when you're not here, even for Ukrainians in other cities like in Odessa or in Kiev. People don't understand that these attacks are happening literally every hour. It never stops, and when it stops, people are afraid. That's when we're afraid, because that means that something really bad is happening.
Mother mia, that's and so what I mean, now your film is on. I suppose we can say a general release, right? I mean, people can watch it. People can go. It will be shown in on different many different TV channels and so on. Is there also a place where people can go and actually watch it, download it?
Yes, my crew, my co-authors and I decided that it's an urgent matter, and we had an option of waiting for a year for some festival premiere or distributors, and we didn't have this time because Kherson is being demolished, and that basically the film is a tool or a weapon in information warfare. We needed to bring this knowledge out there. So we released it. It is available at the website www.khersonhumansafari.com in one word. You don't have to register. It's free. The first page is a trailer. The second page, you just click on the little arrow and you watch it.